I've been reading this book, this research strategies by William Badke. This is the fifth edition. The sixth edition has just come out, but from what I've seen, it's pretty similar. It's not so different. I have to look through the whole thing just to see. But there's something in this book that I found really interesting, and I really felt that it's helpful for anybody to just know. And one, it's in this idea of should you quote material, or should you paraphrase the material, or should you summarize the material? And so if you're taking another scholar and he or she has said something, what should you do? Now, what he does in this, especially in chapter 8, he basically shows the advantage of quoting and the disadvantages of quoting, and then the disadvantages of summarizing, and the advantages, and even the disadvantages of paraphrasing, and advantages, so on and so forth. So I liked his clarification of what it means, what's the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing, and I think that's helpful for us as well. So in quoting is basically this, that this is what the author has said exactly. You start with these double quotes. You start with a quote, you say the author says, and then you have 2 lines or 3 lines or 4 lines of exactly what the author says. End it with a quotation mark, and then put a footnote saying this material comes from there. So what I liked was that this is what, for students, it's a very safe way, that they feel if they can quote and give proper footnotes, then they avoid the sin of plagiarism, that they can then they're fine. What Badke seems to say, there are some disadvantages to quoting. Firstly, readers, especially let's say your teacher, doesn't like too much quoting. I know it sounds like a contradiction, but you tend to quote, and it doesn't look like as if you understand it. You're just taking, oh, this is what he says, and then this is what he says, and it doesn't show that the researcher understands, nor does it show that clearly that you're using it appropriately. In fact, we've seen student papers where you have one quotation, then another quotation, then another quotation, without really showing how the paper is progressing from one quotation to another. It's not helpful in a written paper. What Badke says, one problem with the quotation is that you can miss the context of the quotation. You'll just take one phrase or one sentence or two, but the author may be saying something very different, but you've taken a quote out of context. So you have to be careful about that. So in my view, it's good to quote, but you have to do it sparingly. Don't like everything just quote. One thing, because as Badke says, you need to know the context. You need to make sure it's done. You need to show that you have understood the quotation. And third, you need to show that it is relevant for your paper, that it's not just a quote random, but it actually helps build your argument. Okay, so those are the 3 suggestions for quoting. It has advantages that it's accurate, but disadvantages, it could mean that you don't even know what the author is trying to say. So use quotations sparingly, but if you're going to use the author's quote, then put it in quotation marks and put a footnote. Okay, that's the first point. The next comes, Badke goes about summarizing and paraphrasing. I'm just going to talk about the paraphrase, and this is what caught my eye, so I think it's helpful for us. He says don't paraphrase. And he gives reasons why, and that I think is helpful. Paraphrase is rewriting a sentence in your own words. So that's what Badke says in page number 204, is that if, let's say, the author has one thought in one sentence, you restate that exact sentence in your own words. That's paraphrase. So what's wrong with that? A lot of teachers say do that, but okay, let's go with advantages. Advantages is, a good paraphrase means you've understood what the author is saying, and it's always good to show that you're not just quoting, but you're paraphrasing what the quote. That means you're showing it in your own words. That means you've done a good job in terms of understanding it. Even the paraphrase can be said in such a way that it links to your main argument in the paper. It links to your paper. So a good paraphrase can actually help you. So those are advantages. The disadvantages is it's very hard to do a good paraphrase without doing plagiarism. So if the author has said something very accurately, if you're going to write it in your own words, are you actually going to make it better or worse? So many students feel that, okay, well, the author has said it so well, why do I paraphrase it? So their paraphrase is almost exactly like what the author said. And in that process, you may have 2 or 3 or 4 words which are exactly what the author said, which then is a quotation. That's not a paraphrase, it's a quote. But you call it a paraphrase and you forget to put the quotes, and so you're accused of semi-plagiarism or plagiarism. So you have to be very careful when you are when you are when you are paraphrasing. That's one problem. The other thing is uh, it's also according to Badke a lot of work. You have to take one idea and then you have to rewrite that same idea. Why would you do that? I mean, it's okay, fine. It's to show that you understood. So that's one thing, but it does take a lot of work. That imagine for every sentence you're just rewriting, and that could be a problem. Another problem is that the paraphrase is still of one sentence or one thought. And the same problem with quotations happens with paraphrase. You could be paraphrasing a sentence that is not even the most important sentence in the book. So you could be putting in all that hard work and it's all for waste. So you have to be very careful that you understood the whole book and then you're using the correct quotation which you're paraphrasing in your own words. Now, all that effort, Badke says you should just avoid using paraphrase materials. Basically, it's very close to plagiarism. It's very difficult to do it accurately, and thirdly, you may still miss the point of the book, and it may not help. So what Badke does is that he recommends summarizing. Now, summarizing, this is how it differentiates from paraphrase. Paraphrase takes what the author has said in a sentence or two and restates it in your own words. So you're taking an author's word and then you're restating it. A summary takes two or three or four pages and perhaps even a whole chapter and summarizing it in one sentence. So it's taking large and making it small. That's summary. So this summary is requires you to know the context, and it puts the entire argument into one small sentence which is usable for your argument, and that's a very powerful way of using authors and then moving on, especially for your own paper. Sometimes we are quoting this scholar, this scholar, this scholar, this scholar. There's no time to write your own what you're trying to say. It's no time to prove what you're trying to say. But the moment you can summarize an entire author's position in one sentence, and that can be very helpful for you to when you're in your writing phase to summarize. So this is what he basically says: summarizing is much faster than quoting because you're telling what you understand from, let's say you've read this page or read 2 pages, and you say, okay, this is what the author is saying through these 2 pages. Instead of quoting the entire 2 pages, you're just summarizing the whole 2 pages into one sentence. So it's much faster. The second thing is summarizing is actually interpretation. So it is a critical aspect. It's not simply just describing what the author is saying. You are actually saying, this is, I think, what he's trying to say. This is what he means. So it is an interpretation, and a lot of examiners and teachers will appreciate that you have summarized adequately, and that shows that you've understood. The dangers of summarizing: if you don't do a good job, you may be missing a key point. This is the opposite of paraphrase. Where paraphrase, you may be taking a quote out of context, a sentence out of context. You may think that you understand the whole chapter, but actually maybe you're misunderstanding the whole chapter. Like, for instance, I had to write a paper, and I had to summarize chapter 2. So I summarized chapter 2 and I submitted that paper, but the teacher said, you didn't read chapter 3. And so I said, yeah, because the thing said chapter 2. Because in chapter 3, he critiques his own chapter 2. And he says, so in chapter 2, he said something, and then in chapter 3, he said the opposite. And so I think the author is trying to promote chapter 2, but actually he's leading towards chapter 3. So the summary still misses the point. So you have to be very careful with summary. So let me just go to the dangers. Was you may miss the point, or you may miss out key quotes that you may have wanted to say. So those are two disadvantages. But the advantages are that it shows the reader that you understand. That's one thing, and it is actually faster than quoting, which I didn't think about. Because you're interpreting, I think this is the third advantage. It's harder to plagiarize by summarizing. So if you have to, I want to plagiarize, like if I'm summarizing 2 chapters into one sentence, I will obviously be using my words. So there's a sense that it's my interpretation, my reading of how the author is trying to say. So Badke, I think, rightly promotes summarizing as better than quoting directly or paraphrasing. So I hope you've got a sense of the difference. Quoting, directly quoting what the author is saying. Paraphrasing, restating what the author has said, usually one sentence, and saying it in your own words. Both have their value, but Badke prefers summarizing as a better way of writing articles, and even of note taking, but especially of writing articles. So I hope you found that helpful. I really found it helpful.